Mira stood quietly at the edge of the landing dock as the large silver ship arrived at the Galactic Academy. Around her, students from across the galaxy stepped out in glowing clothes and spoke in loud, excited voices. Some had shining metal parts, others had floating data screens around their heads. Mira had none of these. She wore a simple brown shawl and carried an old bag, made of cloth. She didn't look like she belonged. The Galactic Academy was the most advanced school in the known universe. Only the brightest minds were allowed here, mathematicians, scientists, thinkers. Mira came from a small farming town on Earth, where people still used their hands to grow food and fix broken machines. She had no degree from a big city school, no implanted knowledge chip, and no high-level sponsor. She only had one thing, a quiet mind. Her roommate, a sharp-tongued girl named Juno from Titan, looked at her with a mix of confusion and pity when Mira walked into the shared dorm room. "You're human?" Juno asked, raising an eyebrow. "From Earth, like the dirt planet?" "Yes," Mira replied calmly. "A small valley near the mountains," Juno laughed. "Did you get in by accident?" Mira smiled, but said nothing. In the first class, the professor, a floating cube of light named Professor Elin, introduced a basic test. It was to check the students' thinking speed. Screens lit up, and complex math problems filled the air. Students' hands moved fast as they typed answers or used neural links to solve. Mira stared at her screen, slowly reading the question. Some students giggled when they saw she wasn't using any tools. "She's just staring," one boy whispered. "Maybe she doesn't even know what the numbers mean." Mira continued calmly. Her hands still. Her eyes moved, but she didn't rush. She solved each question in her head and pressed the answers in one by one. She didn't finish first. She didn't finish last. But her answers were all correct. Professor Elam looked surprised. "Miss Mira," the cube spoke gently, "your method is different. I like to listen to the problem before I try to fix it," Mira said with a soft voice. Some students rolled their eyes. One boy from the Arkan sector muttered, "Humans are always slow." In the cafeteria, the laughter continued. "She counts on her fingers," said a girl with silver eyes. "I bet she still uses paper," said another. But Mira never got angry. She simply watched. She watched how the others used fast machines, but missed small details. She listened when they talked loudly, but often said nothing wise. She noticed how their minds moved fast, but not deep. At night, she sat by the window and stared at the stars. She didn't miss her home, not yet. But she did miss the quiet of the fields and the sound of wind through trees. Here, everything moved with noise and light. One evening, while walking through the academy gardens, Mira met someone different. A robot gardener named Timo rolled slowly beside her. His voice was soft, and he had no shiny parts. Just a round head and a watering hose for one arm. "You don't talk much," Timo said. "Talking too much hides the real things." Mira replied. "I think you're the only one here who sees the sky," Timo said. "Most students never look up," Mira smiled. "Old habit." They sat together in silence. A simple robot and a quiet woman from Earth. The next day, a strange message arrived in class. A special guest was visiting, a Zale mathematician named Rickson. The Zale were known for building living math problems, challenges that changed every second, and tested not only speed but deep understanding. The problem Rickson brought was called the infinite branch. No one had ever solved it. "It grows as you solve it," explained Professor Elin, "and it hides patterns inside patterns. Many have tried. All have failed." Rickson floated into the room like a cloud of glass. His many eyes blinked at once. "Let us see who dares," he said. Students cheered. This was their chance to impress a master of galactic logic. The best students jumped up. One by one, they tried. Some lasted 10 seconds. Some 20. One boy from the Zelf system almost reached the third level before the problem collapsed on itself and kicked him out. Rickson shook his head. Your thinking is narrow. Your minds are too fast. You miss the roots. Then, something unexpected happened. I'll try, came a soft voice from the back. Everyone turned. It was Myra. Juno gasped. No way. She'll break the board, someone laughed. Even Professor Elin seemed unsure. Miss Myra, this is highly advanced. Are you certain? Yes, she said, and walked forward. She looked small next to the glowing board. Her plain clothes and slow steps didn't match the high energy of the room. But her eyes were clear. Board lit up. The problem appeared, and Myra stared. 1 second. 2, 5, 10. The students began to snicker, but Myra didn't move. Her eyes scanned the patterns. She tilted her head. Her fingers twitched, not touching the board, just dancing. In the air. Like she was drawing lines only she could see. Then at second number 17. She spoke. The room went silent. The board stopped flashing. Rickson's eyes all froze. The problem. Faded. It was solved. No error. No doubt. Solved. In 17 seconds. Everyone stared at her. No one spoke. Myra turned quietly and walked back to her seat. And for the first time, nobody laughed. The story of Myra solving the impossible problem in 17 seconds spread through the Galactic Academy like a fire through dry grass. By the next morning, students in every class were talking about it. She didn't even touch the board. No implants. No data tools. Nothing. Did you see the way the Zale just stared at her? Even those who didn't believe it at first came to see the recording. It was clear. Myra had stood quietly, looked at the living equation, and found its hidden path. She had done what no computer, no AI, and no galactic genius had ever done. Still, many didn't accept it. She got lucky, one student said. The problem glitched, another guessed. I bet it was a trick, whispered Juno to her friend. She probably studied it in secret. But Rickson, the Zale mathematician, was not someone easy to fool. The Zale species had built logic puzzles that confused even the ancient AI minds. They didn't believe in tricks or luck. They believed in truth. Rickson had watched Myra with all 5 of his eyes and 20 sensors. And what he saw was no cheat. He requested a private meeting with the Academy Council. Meanwhile, Myra returned to her simple routine. She attended her classes, sat at the back, and answered only when asked. She ate alone, walked in the gardens with Timo the robot, and wrote notes in a small paper journal, a thing most students had never even seen before. The council called a special meeting. Everyone was invited to the grand hall. Inside the shining crystal dome, leaders of every department sat on floating chairs. AI teachers, alien scholars, human officials, and even one representative from the mind cloud were present. Rickson stood in the center with Professor Elin and a tall humanoid named Chancellor Vareen. Varen's voice echoed through the dome. Students and staff. Today we discuss a matter of great interest. A student, Myra of Earth, has solved the infinite branch problem, something thought to be unsolvable. Gasps filled the room, even from those who had not seen the recording yet. We have checked the records. There was no cheating, no outside help. The solution was exact and complete. Rickson himself confirmed it. The Zale floated forward. Her mind is different, he said. She does not move fast. She moves deep, like a river under quiet stone. Another whisper ran through the crowd. Chancellor Vareen continued. To understand this better, we will host a new challenge. In 2 days, Myra will be invited to face an advanced version of the living problem. This one has never been shown before, not even to our highest thinkers. The crowd stirred. A new challenge? One harder than the last? All eyes turned toward Myra, who stood calmly near the back of the room. Juno folded her arms. Let's see how deep she moves this time. After the meeting, Mira was surrounded by reporters and curious minds, but she answered none of them. She only said one thing to the chancellor: "If I may, I'd like to continue attending regular classes until then." "Of course," Vareen replied, curious about her calmness. In the following days, students watched her closely. Many tried to talk to her, hoping to learn her method. Some wanted to befriend her. Others hoped to find a weakness, but Mira did not show off. She didn't brag or speak of her success. She just listened and observed. In logic class, while others rushed to answer the teacher's fast puzzles, Mira sat and thought longer. Often, she gave answers that were not just correct, but beautiful. Answers that made the teacher pause and say, "I hadn't thought of it that way." Timo, the robot gardener, told a curious student, "She listens to numbers the way birds listen to wind." The night before the new challenge, the sky above the academy turned purple with the light of a nearby starburst. Students couldn't sleep. They filled the halls with whispers and guesses. "She's going to fail this time. No one can beat a problem designed to fight back. I hope she proves them wrong again." Mira, however, sat by the garden tree with her paper notebook, drawing quiet shapes and writing in small letters. Timo rolled beside her. "You are not afraid?" "Fear comes when we think too much about winning or losing," Mira replied. "I am not here to win. I am here to see," Timo buzzed gently. "What if it cannot be solved?" "Then I will learn something new," she said with a smile. The next morning, the grand hall was full. The new problem was prepared. This version of the infinite branch had layers inside layers. It watched the solver. It changed shapes. It responded to emotion, logic, and rhythm. It was built to adapt. Many believed even trying to solve it would break a normal mind. Chancellor Vareen welcomed the crowd. "Today is not just a test of speed or memory," he said. "It is a test of something. We often forget patience, clarity, and the human way of seeing." Mira stepped forward. This time, there was no laughter. The board lit up. The new problem appeared. It twisted like light through water. It formed and unformed, shifting like a dream. Every second, it evolved. Mira stood still. She watched. 10 seconds. She closed her eyes. 15 seconds. Her fingers moved. Slow and soft, as if guiding invisible waves. Then she opened her eyes, took one step forward, and spoke just a few quiet words. The room fell into silence. The problem stopped. It faded. It was solved. Again. In 17 seconds. This time, no one said a word. No one laughed. No one doubted. Even Rickson, the master of living problems, dropped his head in respect. And Mira returned to her seat without a smile. She didn't look proud. She only looked peaceful. The great hall stayed silent even after the glowing symbols vanished from the air. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Mira had just solved the advanced version of the infinite branch. And she had done it again. In exactly 17 seconds. "Chancellor." Vareen stood slowly from his seat. His silver robe shimmered under the soft blue lights. Even he, a man who had seen thousands of wonders from across the galaxy, looked speechless. Rickson floated closer to the empty board. The five-eyed Zale stared into the space where the living problem had just vanished. "It is solved," he said quietly. "Truly solved." Mira stood calm. She looked at no one. She didn't raise her arms or smile. She only stepped back and returned to her seat near the edge of the crowd, as if nothing important had happened. A student from the back finally whispered, "How?" That word broke the silence. Suddenly, voices filled the hall like a wave. "She did it again. That's not possible. She's not normal. 17 seconds? Again?" Some clapped. Others shook their heads. Some students looked excited. Others looked afraid. Juno sat frozen, her mouth half open. She stared at Mira and didn't say a word. Her friend nudged her. "She did it. You saw that, right?" Juno only nodded, slowly. Chancellor Vareen raised his hand and the noise dropped. "This moment," he said, his voice strong, "will be remembered for a long time." He turned toward Mira. "Miss Mira of Earth, you have done what no other has ever done, and you did it with peace, with clarity, and without pride. The galaxy owes you respect. But more than that, we owe you understanding. How did you do it?" Mira stood, not nervous, not proud. "I listened," she said simply. "Listened?" asked Rickson, tilting his glassy head. "Yes," she said. "Problems like that. They speak. They don't shout. They whisper. But everyone tries to force the answer out too quickly. They attack it. I just listened to what it was trying to become." The room went silent again. Professor Elin hovered forward, his cube shape glowing a bit brighter than usual. "You saw the pattern?" "No," Myra replied. "I felt it." "Felt it?" A robot teacher repeated, confused. Mira nodded. "Grew up in a small place. We had little machines, little money, but we had time. I watched the wind in the trees, how birds circled before a storm, how the water curved through rocks. Math is the same. It has shape and flow. You can't rush water. You have to let it show you the way." A few students chuckled quietly, not mocking, but amazed. Professor Elin looked thoughtful. This is not the kind of thinking we teach here." "I know," Mira said. "But it is the kind of thinking that helped me survive." Chancellor Vareen spoke again. "Will you teach us?" he asked. "Show us how to see this way." Mira paused. "I don't know if I can teach it," she answered softly. "But I can share it." From that moment, things began to change. In the following days, Mira was no longer ignored. She was invited to speak in high-level logic forums. Experts from faraway planets asked her questions. Advanced AI ran simulations based on her method, trying to understand her way of thinking. Still, Mira did not act like a hero. She refused interviews. She walked the same paths, ate the same simple food, talked to Timo, the robot gardener, more than she talked to reporters. Her classmates, once full of jokes and laughter behind her back, now sat near her in class, hoping to hear even a single thought. Juno stayed quiet. She didn't speak to Mira directly, but sometimes she watched her with something that looked like guilt or maybe respect. Mira noticed, but said nothing. One day, in a quiet corner of the garden, Mira was visited by three beings, one human, one AI, and one from the Starborn Kinari race. They were members of the Council of Minds, a group known for solving the galaxy's most complex problems. "We came to learn," the Kinari said, bowing slightly. "Not to teach, not to challenge, just to listen." Mira smiled, "Then sit down," she said, "and be ready to be quiet." They sat under the tree as she drew simple shapes on the ground with a small stick. Circles, waves, lines that curved and broke. "This is how the wind moves through my valley," she said. "This is how I learned numbers, not with rules, with rhythm." They stayed there for hours. Meanwhile, not everyone was pleased. In a cold room below the academy, some of the older minds, those connected to high-tech corporations and private research labs, watched recordings of Myra's work. "She broke our systems," said one. "She did it without tech," said another. "If her way becomes popular, it will destroy the need for implants," said a third. "Or for us." These voices were powerful, and though they didn't speak out in public, they began to move in secret. Some started searching for errors in Myra's past. Others tried to discredit her methods by saying they were lucky guesses or emotional illusions, but none could explain the truth. The truth was, Mira had done it twice 17 seconds, and with nothing but her own human mind. Back in the garden, Timo the robot brought Mira a small cup of warm drink. "You made them quiet," he said. "They were always too loud," she replied. "I just gave them a reason to pause." Timo's eyes blinked with joy. Double quotes. "Do you think they'll learn to listen?" he asked. I don't know, Mira said, sipping slowly. But even one moment of silence can plant a seed. The stars above the academy twinkled in silence, and somewhere deep in the academy's walls, a new problem was being built, one even harder than the last. But Myra didn't worry. She had learned that silence, patience, and the human way of seeing were more powerful than any machine, and the galaxy was just beginning to understand that too. The stars above the Galactic Academy moved slowly through the night sky, but inside the academy walls, everything moved quickly. People were running tests, checking data, replaying recordings. Every expert wanted to understand how Myra had solved the impossible problems in just 17 seconds. Not once, but twice. No one had ever done that before. Not even the great AI minds or the alien scholars with thousands of years of training. The Council of Minds held secret meetings to talk about Myra. Her name was now known across all the learning centers in the galaxy. On distant moons and inside large data clouds, beings were discussing her. Some called her a genius. Others called her a mystery. A few said she must be something more than human. But Myra was not concerned about the talk. She continued her classes, sat quietly in the garden, and helped Timo the robot gardener plant new flowers for the summer season. One morning, Professor Elin visited her during a study break. He floated beside her near the garden fountain, his glowing cube body pulsing gently. "Myra," he said, "I have a request." She looked up from her notebook. "Yes?" "The council wants to know how your mind works. They want to study your brain, to understand your thinking. Maybe even copy it into a machine." Myra closed her notebook slowly. "I'm not sure that's a good idea," she replied. Elin tilted forward. "Why not?" "With your permission, we can use non-invasive scans. You wouldn't feel anything." Myra smiled gently. "It's not about feeling. It's about understanding. You cannot understand a tree by cutting it down. You must grow with it." Elin stayed silent. "I don't want my thinking turned into numbers," she continued. "It's not a formula, it's a lifetime. Every moment I lived helped shape it. Good days, hard days, small lessons. I didn't learn from machines. I learned from the world." Elin floated back slowly, as if her words were heavier than expected. "I will share what I can," she added, "but not by being scanned, by showing." Later that day, Myra was invited to speak in front of the senior thinkers at the academy. The room was full. Students, teachers, AI minds, and even visitors from other star systems had come. She stepped onto the center platform, wearing the same simple brown shawl she always wore. "I was never trained by experts," she began. "I was trained by life." She looked around the room. No one made a sound. "My family lived in a small valley on Earth," she continued. "We had no big machines, no fast networks, but we had time. We had sky, rivers, and seasons. We watched birds and clouds to know when it would rain. We counted stars for stories. We solved problems with hands and with hearts." She paused. "Math was not just numbers. It was part of the world. I watched water move around rocks, and I learned how problems move around confusion. I watched plants grow, and I learned patience. I watched shadows change, and I learned how truth has layers." One of the alien scholars raised a hand. "But how did that help you solve something as complex as the infinite branch?" Myra nodded. "It's true. The problem was complex, but it had a rhythm, a secret music. Everyone tried to force it open with speed. I listened to the rhythm. I followed its steps. Like dancing with the wind, some students began to smile. Others looked unsure. But surely, said an AI voice from the back, logic and emotion are separate. You speak like a poet, not a scientist. Myra replied calmly, logic without feeling is like a body without breath. You may move, but you are not alive. Real understanding needs both. The hall was quiet again. Then an older human professor stood and spoke. Do you believe? Your way of thinking can be taught? Mira looked thoughtful. I believe it can be shared. But it must be practiced, slowly, with care. It's not a switch you flip. It's a path you walk. After the speech, many stayed to ask more questions. Some wanted to study with her. Others simply wanted to sit with her for a moment. But not everyone was happy. Deep in one of the private research towers, a tall man named Drell watched the broadcast with cold eyes. He worked for a group that made learning implants and thinking boosters. His company had sold millions of tech-based upgrades to schools across the galaxy. This woman is dangerous to business, he muttered. If her way spreads, our tech becomes useless. He opened the channel to his team. Find a weakness, he ordered. Anything. We must show the galaxy she's not special, or we lose everything. His team began to search her background. Looking through old records from Earth, they scanned her school reports, her town's history, her family line. But they found nothing unusual, no secret training, no hidden tech. Just a quiet life. Too quiet. This is a problem, Drell said. No one becomes that skilled from picking apples and watching rain. Something is missing. He decided to act. Next day, Myra was invited to the Chancellor's office. Chancellor Vareen looked serious. Mira, he said, there are whispers. Some say your success is too perfect, that maybe you had help. Mira nodded. She had expected this. I understand, she said. People often doubt what they don't understand. I believe you, Vareen said. But some members of the board want you to take another test, this time under full control, with watchers, sensors, and mind scans. Mira took a deep breath. I will take the test, she said. But only under one condition. What is that? Vareen asked. That. You also let me teach one class afterward my way. Vareen smiled slightly. Fair enough. Outside the office, Timo waited for Myra. They want you to prove yourself again? The robot asked. Yes, Mira replied. But that's all right. Do you ever get tired of proving yourself? Mira looked up at the sky. Not when I know who I am. She walked forward, peaceful as always, ready to face the next challenge, not to win, not to prove others wrong, but to share what she had learned from life, silence, and the slow wisdom of a human soul. Mira stood in the test chamber, alone once again. Bright lights surrounded her. Small scanning drones floated around the room, recording everything, her eye movement, her breathing, the smallest flick of her fingers. On the walls, a line of observers watched her closely. Professors, AI minds, government agents, and business officials. Among them stood Drell, the man who had begun the whispers. He wore a dark suit and a cold smile. If she fails, he whispered to the person beside him, we show the galaxy she's nothing more than a lucky farmer. Inside the chamber, Mira remained calm. The new problem appeared in the air. It twisted and shifted, more complex than the last. It was not only a math puzzle, now it tested reaction, memory, logic, and emotion at the same time. The design was meant to overload any natural mind. Mira looked at it. Quietly. 10 seconds passed. 15 seconds. Observers leaned forward. Then Mira smiled softly and spoke. The symbols. Stop. The board dissolved. Solve. Again. In 17 seconds. The chamber fell silent. No flicker of error. No sign of cheating. Just truth. Outside, news spread faster than light. Third impossible problem solved in 17 seconds. Simple woman from Earth shocks galactic minds again. Even under full scan she still wins. Students cheered. In the halls, young children across the galaxy started learning to observe nature and practice patience. Some schools even paused their use of brain implants to study Myra's method. A few scholars called it natural logic, a kind of thinking that grew from real life instead of machines. But not everyone was happy. In a quiet room, Drell slammed his fist against the table. "She beat the system again," he growled. One of his assistants spoke nervously. "There's nothing fake in her test. No data errors. We scanned everything. She's real." "That's the problem," Drell snapped. "She's too real. No upgrades. No machines. And she's better than all of us." He paced the room. "If we don't stop her, we lose control of education, science, even memory design. Everyone will turn to this human thinking and throw away our tech." He sat down slowly. "Then we must do something else. Not disprove her. Destroy her image." At the academy, Mira was invited to teach a special class. Chancellor Vareen kept his promise. The class was open to anyone, student, teacher, or visitor. It filled up within minutes. Many couldn't even find a seat and had to watch from screens. Outside the room, Mira stood at the front, beside a blank wall. There were no glowing charts, no data streams, no flying robots. Just her voice. "Close your eyes," she said. At first, no one moved. "Close your eyes," she repeated softly, "and take a deep breath." The room slowly obeyed. "Now think of a tree," she said. "Not a picture, a real tree. Roots, leaves, the sound of wind in the branches. Feel it. Count the patterns. Listen to its silence." For 10 minutes, the room stayed quiet. No flashing lights. No fast questions, only thought. When the class ended, people walked out slowly. Some looked confused. Others smiled deeply. A few even had tears in their eyes. What did she teach? One student asked. "Nothing," said another. "And everything." That evening, the first attack began. A news site posted a false story. Mira's family linked to illegal data trade. Within hours, another site claimed Mira received secret training from Lost AI Group. People started asking questions again. Is she really simple? Did she fake her story? Was it all planned? Mira sat alone under the garden tree, watching the stars. Timo the robot rolled beside her. "They're trying to break your truth," he said. Mira nodded. "Yes. Will you fight back?" "No," she said. "Truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to wait." But what if people stop believing? Then they were never ready to learn. Mira said quietly. She took out her notebook and began to draw again. Circles, spirals, patterns from the day's wind. The next day, Mira entered the library and found her seat already taken. Some students whispered when she walked past, "She's not what she says. She fooled us all. I heard her records were changed." Even Juno, who had started to respect Mira, now looked uncertain. "You're not going to answer them?" she asked. "No." Mira replied calmly. "Lies are loud at first, but the truth always stays." Still, the damage was spreading. News sites ran more fake stories. Old classmates claimed Mira once copied answers in school. Lies made for attention. A false report even said she was a test subject created in a lab. Drl watched it all with quiet satisfaction. "The seeds of doubt are growing," he said, but he didn't understand something important. Mira wasn't interested in fame. She didn't speak to reporters. She didn't argue online. She didn't care about winning. She only cared about learning and sharing. One night, a quiet message reached Chancellor Vareen's desk. It was a collection of reports from trusted watchers across the galaxy. They had followed the source of the false stories. All lines pointed to one place, Drell's company. Vareen called an emergency meeting. He played the recordings, showed the paid reporters, the fake witnesses, the changed documents. Then he said clearly, "This academy stands for truth, not profit." Drell was banned from all academy programs. His company was removed from education contracts. The news spread quickly, and just like that, the lies died. The next morning, students waited outside the garden tree. They didn't want her to speak. They just wanted to sit near her. to be quiet with her. To learn in silence. Mira welcomed them with a small smile. She said nothing, and the learning began. The Council of Minds had never invited a student before. It was an ancient group made of the greatest thinkers in the galaxy, elders of old species, minds built from living stars, deep is, and humans with thousands of years of knowledge. They lived far from the public eye, solving mysteries that shaped the future of science, law, and society. Now, for the first time in centuries, they called for someone unexpected, a simple human woman from Earth. Mira. The invitation came as a quiet message through Professor Elin. You are requested to visit the council, he said, looking more surprised than usual. They want to meet you and test you one final time. Mira nodded gently. When? Tomorrow, at sunrise. The next day, a small ship flew Mira through clouds of golden mist. The journey led far away from the academy, past gas rings and memory planets, until they reached a floating structure above a glowing white star. The building looked like it was made from crystalline stone, surrounded by quiet gardens that grew without soil. Inside, the air was calm. The council waited. There were 13 beings, each very different. One was a tall human dressed in old earth cloth. Another was a floating blue jelly made of pure memory. One was a voice coming from wind. The rest were shapes Mira couldn't even describe. At the center stood the prime chair, a round, glowing platform where the final challenge would be placed. Mira stepped onto it without fear. A voice from the council spoke, soft and deep. We have watched you, Mira of Earth. You solved the impossible 3 times. Each time with no tool but your own mind. Today you will face something different. Not a problem of numbers, but a problem of balance. Mira listened, saying nothing. The voice continued. This challenge cannot be solved by math alone. It requires understanding of feeling, time, and consequence. It will test who you are, not just what you know. A beam of light filled the air in front of her. Images appeared, memories of war, hunger, planets crying for help. In the middle of the images stood a puzzle, 7 doors, each leading to a different future. Some futures were bright, but selfish. Some were fair but painful. Some brought peace, but only for a few. Mira had to choose the door that gave the best future for all. Not the easiest, not the fastest, but the truest. She closed her eyes. Time slowed. Voices echoed in her mind. Some from her past. Her father's voice telling her to listen before speaking. Her mother's quiet singing during hard winters. The sound of water running through the rocks of her valley. She breathed in deeply. Then she stepped toward the 4th door. The light faded. Silenced. The council didn't speak for a full minute. Then the wind voice whispered. She chose the hardest path, the one with no reward for herself, yet the one that saves the most. She passed, said the jelly voice. She understood the weight of thinking. Added the I. The human elder stood. Mira, he said with calm respect, you have shown what we feared no longer existed, deep thought with no hunger for power. The council stood one by one and bowed their heads. Mira bowed back slowly. Then the elder spoke again. You are free to leave now, or you may ask for one gift. Mira stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, I want to open one room in the academy, a quiet room. No tools, no screens, just silence and space to think. For any student who wants to learn my way. The council agreed. Back at the academy, the quiet room was opened within a day. It was a round space with no machines, no bright lights. Only windows, plants, and soft air. Students could sit, draw, write, or simply breathe. At first, only a few came. But slowly, more joined. Some stayed for hours, even days. They said the room helped them think in a new way. And Mira? She didn't stand at the front. She never gave orders. She sat with them like a friend, answering questions only when asked, guiding softly. Juno, once her loudest critic, became one of the room's best listeners. She often helped others understand the patterns Mira saw in silence. One day, she sat beside Mira and asked, "Do you ever miss your valley?" Mira looked up at the sky through the round window. "Every day," she said. "But now I carry it inside me." Far away, in the business towers where Drell had once planned her fall, silence had returned. His company lost all major contracts. His lies had been exposed. And while Mira's name was now respected across the galaxy, his had become a warning. "You can't silence truth," the people said. "It waits." Mira never spoke of him again. She held no anger. Timo, the gardener robot, asked her once, "Don't you want justice?" "No," she said gently. "I want peace." "That is stronger." Months passed. The academy changed. More students began asking new kinds of questions, slower, deeper ones. They stopped rushing through lessons. They listened, watched, thought before speaking. Some even removed their implants for a while, just to see how their natural minds worked. A quiet revolution had begun, not through power, not through noise, through the soft steps of a woman who never wanted to lead, but simply showed a different way to think. Mira stood in the garden behind the academy, the sunlight falling softly on her face. Around her, quiet flowers opened to the morning air. A gentle breeze moved through the leaves. She knelt beside a small plant and touched the soil with her fingers. It was earth soil sent from her home valley, carried across stars in a small glass jar. She had asked for nothing else. The academy had changed, and everyone knew it. Once, it was a place of loud voices and fast machines. Now it was a place of balance. The silence had returned, not as a sign of fear, but as a space for thought. Students no longer laughed at the slow thinker. They now waited in line to speak with her, to ask questions not only about math but about life, about peace, about how to stay human in a galaxy full of machines and noise. One day, a message came to Mira. It was from the Earth Council. They invited her home. The letter was warm and simple. "Myra of the Valley, your people miss you. The world has heard your story. You gave us pride. Come back if only for a while." Mira thought for a moment. She loved the academy, the students, and the quiet room. But she missed the smell of fresh rain on old rocks. She missed the laughter of her neighbors, the simple songs of birds. She missed the way mountains stood without speaking, yet taught so much. She accepted the invitation. The journey back to Earth was silent and peaceful. No reporters, no crowd. Just stars. She arrived in her valley at dawn. The same trees still stood at the edge of the river. The same wind moved through the tall grass. Children played near the water, just like she once had. People welcomed her with kind eyes and open arms. They did not call her genius or hero. They called her Mira from the hill, just as before. That was what she loved the most. But her story had not been forgotten. In every part of the galaxy, people were still talking about the woman who solved the impossible in 17 seconds. Her face appeared in books, her method in lectures. Even species who never cared for humans began to respect the quiet strength of Earth's thinkers. Some believed she was lucky. Some thought she was gifted by the stars. But those who truly studied her words knew the truth. She was not faster. She was deeper. She did not rush. She observed. She did not fight. She understood. And that was what made her powerful. Back at the academy, the quiet room remained open. It was now called the Myra Room. On its wall, someone had carved a quote she once said, "You don't need to be loud to be strong. You need to listen before you answer." More students from other planets came to sit inside it. Some cried. Some smiled. All left with something new in their hearts. Even robots, who were built only for calculation, began asking permission to visit the room, to sit in silence, and try to understand what Mira called the feeling behind the numbers. It was a new kind of learning, and it began to spread. In time, the Galactic Academy changed its rules. Now students were not chosen only by grades or test results. They were also selected based on patience, balance, and their ability to listen. Quiet minds were given the same chance as fast minds. Slow thought was seen not as weakness, but as strength. Some called this time the second human wave. Not because humans built stronger weapons or bigger machines, but because they reminded the galaxy that wisdom didn't always shout. Sometimes it whispered. Mira lived simply after that. She helped her village grow food, taught children basic numbers, and sat with elders who told old stories. Sometimes she received messages from the stars, from students who thanked her, from leaders who asked for advice, from strangers who found hope in her story. She answered every message with kindness. And then, one day, she disappeared. No one knew where she went. Some say she returned to the stars. Others believe she walked into the mountains and became one with the earth. She loved so much. But the quiet room remained, and the legend grew. Years later, a child at the academy sat in the Myra room. She was quiet and unsure. She had failed her last 3 tests and didn't understand why her mind worked differently from others. People laughed when she paused before answering. They said she was too slow to be here. But in the silence of that room, something changed. Saw a small stone on the window ledge. On it, a single word was written: breathe. She smiled, closed her eyes, and began to think not like the others, but like herself. That day she solved the puzzle no one else could, and a new story began.